I'm Lyman, and I'm here with my good friend Marcel, and together we are presenting the Jazz and Grass and Other Stuff Too podcast.
Hey everyone, how you doing? Just to bring it full circle here, if you're a fan of us on Instagram, I love that. For those of you who haven't found us on Instagram yet, we run an account called Jazz and Grass, and we post a new lick every single weekday, and we alternate every day between whether we're posting a jazz lick or a bluegrass lick. I post the bluegrass licks. I do that on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Lyman posts the jazz licks. He does that on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I said that correctly. And
yes.
We would love it if you would go follow us. I have no idea what the follower count is right now. I know it's getting close to 700, though, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I think we're 689.
Wow, that sounds like you didn't just check it.
I did not just check it. I totally just checked it.
Oh, man. So we're doing something kind of, well, let's not do that yet. How about, what if people want to call in, Lyman?
If you want to call and yell at me, yell directly at me. Actually, you're not going to yell directly at me. You're only going to be able to leave a message if you call. But if you want to call and yell at me and I'll hear it later, the number you can reach me at is 724-257-1046. That's 724-257-1046. And if you want, we'll play your message on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I hope we can get some people lined up and we can do like a couple in a row. I don't know, maybe like 30 in a row for an entire episode, so we don't have to talk. It's more just like listening to our answering machine.
Yeah. Like the old marzipan answering machine from Homestar Runner.
Homestar 10. Yeah, so we're doing something kind of different for this episode. We're doing our Father's Day episode. We're going to talk about our real dads and our musical dads, and hopefully make those things make sense as we get into the podcast. Yeah.
We're just going to talk about our fathers. So happy Father's Day, I guess.
Wow, it's spoken like a true son. Like, happy Father's Day, I guess, or whatever.
Mr. Bob, I love you. I just wanted to say that because I know you listen to these.
Oh, man. See, my dad doesn't listen to these, so I don't have to say that I love him. And I'll just, I'll keep that bottled up inside, buried real, down deep, and I'll never say it out loud.
Before we get into all that, anything interesting going on in your life right now? Super interesting?
Oh, you just in general?
Yeah.
Anything interesting? Yeah, actually, there is something really interesting. I don't want to brag or anything, but I got a bug bite on my elbow. And if you know anything about bug bites, it's like the worst spot to get a bug bite. It hurts really bad. Is this what you were asking for? Is this the information about my life that you were? Yeah.
Yes.
And it's super itchy and it's hard to like scratch your elbow. So to all my homies that got bug bites on their elbows, I feel you. I know what you're going through. I'm sorry.
I got a wicked scar on my my elbow.
Oh yeah, that's sweet.
I fell off my bike when I was 14. It was the first day of 8th grade, and me and my buddy were just gonna ride to school, and I get about 20 feet away from my house when I just eat it. I just hit the gravel, and I tear my elbow up, and I could see my bone. I missed the first 3 days of school. I had to get stitches and like my skin stretched back to like cover, the exposed bone matter.
You had like a little forearm facelift. They tightened up the skin so it wasn't like wrinkly or anything right at the forearm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my elbow story.
Oh man, sounds like mine's a little more serious, but yours was interesting too. You got anything going on?
I've been gigging a lot in the White Mountains of Arizona, just playing bass, jumping around like a maniac.
It sounds like you've been gigging a lot.
I've been doing a lot of Alanis Morissette covers, and I just lose my mind. Like, those are so much fun for me. I'm not sure if they're fun for anybody else, but they're fun for me.
Getting in the way with your bass parts.
Yeah, I am quite in the way.
Yeah, I got a gig tonight, as do you. We both have gigs tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have not been gigging as much as you. I've been doing one like every other weekend or something like that, which is crazy. I used to gig so much more before I moved, and I'm just now like starting to get with bands again and try to build up that whole schedule again. I miss it and don't at the same time.
It comes with like moving to a new place, like we both did over the last couple of years. Takes a while to sort of make friends, and make friends good enough that they'll be like, "Hey, you should play music with me for money."
Yeah, and I mean the truth is Lyman is my only friend, and every once in a while he lets me out of this box and he lets me talk into a microphone for an hour and a half, and then he's like, "All right, back in you go."
100% true story.
Yeah, super dark in here. Please call into the phone number, leave me messages so I can say things back to you, pretend like I have someone to talk to. Really, keeps me busy. Before this gets any darker, let's talk about our dads.
Yeah. I have a funny little anecdote about my father.
Go ahead.
I may be a little bit fuzzy on the details about this because, like I've said before, like I didn't really start coming online until I was 14 or 15. But I remember just like sitting down watching TV or something like that, something completely unrelated to what was about to happen. When my father just comes up to me and starts making these hand motions and says, "The issue with you is that you're too problem focused." And he was like pushing his hands in together. "You're too problem focused while I'm solution based." And like he would
move his hands apart. Yeah.
Yeah. Completely unrelated to what was going on in my head, and it kind of broke my brain. I'm just
You're
like,
still processing that.
What? That makes no sense. I'm watching cartoons, dog. And I realized, like, because of like the whole absurdity of the situation to me, like that stuck with me. And that was a seed that he planted in my head to not dwell upon problems. And this has helped me a lot, like in music, but rather look for solutions. There's a problem, don't complain, try to fix it.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt to do the hand motions.
Yeah, I mean that's what made it stuck, made it stick to me. I'll never forget it, and it's super funny and absurd to me, but probably nobody else.
That's good.
But yeah, I've been telling everybody about that. Your issue is you're too problem focused, while I'm solution based. You gotta Shatner it a little bit.
If we're doing dadisms, that's good. It's going to be hard for me to think of one that's PG and PC from my father. But my favorite, you're going to have to edit this, Lyman, but, I just love the extra work that you have to do. Yeah. For those of you that don't know, whenever we accidentally swear on the podcast, Lyman claps so that way he can find it in the recording later. And so if you ever hear him mock clapping, that's what the joke is. But anyway, one of my dad's favorite phrases was, "Everyone takes care of their own shit." which was just wonderful. And like as children, I think that we took it like a little more harsh, and we thought that he was being harsh on us. But really, I think what he was getting at is just like a greater sense of the world. Like I'm going out there, like, take a hit off the bong now, man. It's more it's more about like you can't ask the world to change, right? You just have to do your best. Everyone takes care of their own, for lack of a better word. And so you don't go out and ask everyone, hey, fix this problem for me. You're gonna have to like fix stuff yourself. And that was some of the best advice I think he could have given us for a lot of circumstances you come across. Just like you said, music oriented and otherwise, you just got to take care of it.
Yeah, the concept of like personal responsibility has been huge for me, like over the last couple of years. Like, I have literally zero control over what other people do, but I have like almost 100% control of what I do.
That's true.
And I could use that, control I have over myself and my own actions to make things worse, or try to make things just a little bit better than they were yesterday.
Yeah, exactly right. However, to a child, that doesn't make any sense. I don't think those lines get completed.
Those are the seeds our parents plant in our heads, and they water them, and then they grow into actual ideas that we think are our ideas, but they're not our ideas. They're their ideas.
Our parents just say crap, and then as we grow up, we're like, how can I justify this, man? How can I make this how can I make this make sense and not just nonsense?
They're filling our heads with their theories.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we should talk about how our dads play music too. You should go first.
Yeah. I just have like some anecdotes. I remember my father talking to me about a recording session he was doing. And my dad played a lot of reggae. So naturally he was around a lot of Jamaican guys. And while he's in the studio, the Jamaican producer or whatever, I don't know what he was to the session, but he tells my dad, you don't play the cards, you have to hear them. To which my dad translated, you don't play the cards, you have to hear them. And that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, think of it as like a poker analogy. But then the ear gets in the way. But what he was saying is, don't play the chords. You have to hear them. Actually hear the chords. Mm-hmm. And me going deep and justifying the things.
Do it.
The nonsense to something that means something to me. But like auralization, not like oral, like speaking, but like AURAL. I don't know if that's how you spell it. Like if you close your eyes and see something, like that's like your mind's eye. I'm talking about like your mind's ear.
Close your ears and see something.
Well, whenever I play, it's my goal to hear it first. I want to hear ba-da-da before I play it. So don't play the chords. You got to hear them. I was trying to hear those in my mind's ear. I tried to close my ears and see something with my ears before I played those chords.
Yeah, I always think that a good way to think about that aspect of it too is that you can that the things are kind of like fluid in how you're imagining what you're playing. where like you can start an idea with your voice and then pick up your guitar and continue it, and then you can set your guitar down. You could also finish the idea with your voice. That this entire time you're imagining what you're doing up here, and it doesn't matter whether you're holding the instrument or not, right? It's not instrument based, I guess is what I'm saying. You don't want to play guitar like you're just finding the things on the guitar, right? You want to be finding everything up here and putting it on the guitar.
Mm-hmm. It's like sort of my head and hands approach. You got to work on the head thing. You got to work on the hands thing as well. And they're cyclical. They're like a circle. Like the head helps the hands, and the hands help the head a little bit.
Totally. I mean, you don't want to play music like a guitar player. You want to play music like a musician.
Mm-hmm. The guitar is just a tool.
Yeah.
That guy's a tool.
Most guitar players are. We're all tools.
For my amusement.
How did your, just because I don't know a lot of this history, how did your dad get into playing what he does?
I don't know. My background is fuzzy on that, but he was in the first like sort of reggae bands in the Pacific Northwest in the mid to late 80s. I guess he just linked up with the right people, and he told me like he was friends with like the pioneers of the reggae scene in the Pacific Northwest, and just continued playing all the way up until 2013.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think his last gig that he played was the only gig I ever played with my father. The only time we ever shared the stage. It's kind of like, the passing of the torch.
Yeah.
But yeah, he seriously planted a lot of like those seeds in my head, like musically and otherwise, that are that got watered and are becoming, full-blown concepts at this point. But yeah, what about your father? Any cool musical stories?
Yeah, my dad, he started playing drums when he was a teenager, and in high school he did the jazz band and concert band and marching band. He did all that stuff, and he loved playing. He played a lot. I think he really liked jazz drums. I know he played with a lot of rock bands that were already playing in bars and stuff like that when he was in his teens, and I think shortly after high school he sold his drum set to buy his first car. And he didn't play for years after that. Man, I'm trying to do the math in my head. Maybe that would have been 15 years that he didn't play. Maybe more. I might be totally wrong. I might have to ask him. 15 or 20 years. And then he bought another drum set. And that's when I was, I don't know, maybe at that point I was like 9 or 10. And he started me out playing drums. And he plays to this day now. But he gave it up to have his children and everything. I have a lot of early memories of him like drumming on things and like drumming in the car, but it being good drumming. And I remember it being joked about that my dad could play drums, and like while he was drumming, he would like drum on my mom or something, and she would be like, "What drum am I?" And that was funny to us kids. But yeah, I don't think it occurred to us until he actually bought a drum set again that, we would ever actually get to hear him play something. And I think that was really inspiring and really cool. And I really wanted to like play drums after hearing him play. And we ended up taking on from the same teacher. But yeah, that's how my dad got started on everything. And that's where he's at now. He still plays a ton of jazz drums.
Yeah, that's super cool. I hope I get to play with him someday again. We got to play that one time at your place.
Oh yeah, we did, yeah. That's funny. Yeah, he's been doing some other stuff too. I know that he built a cajon recently. I don't know if he's going to do anything with that, but I thought that was cool too. Yeah, we should have him, or I should have him sit in on some bluegrass stuff or something sometime. I don't know, maybe at a bluegrass night or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a fantastic player though. He is really good. And when we were when we were growing up and I started playing guitar too, he would offer to like sing songs too. So he would be like, if you learn how to play this song, like I'll sing it with you guys. And my dad actually does have like a good voice. I mean, like he sings in tune and everything. I mean, better than a lot of guys. And so when we were kids too, it was really nice to have him there to like, I don't know, he helped a lot no matter what we were doing music related. I don't think it was really obvious to us how much he was helping, but he did help a lot.
Mm-hmm. It never is obvious. It's always hidden a little bit.
That's some dad stuff.
I hope when I'm a father, I'm just obvious. I feel like that's my style.
You got to start working up them hand signals right now. Make sure you got some interesting stuff to lay down.
I've got another anecdote about my father and reverse psychology. I fell victim to reverse psychology hardcore. So like when I started playing music, my dad was, very encouraging for like the first year. And then he's like, after he saw that I enjoyed it, he would tell me, there will be no music in this house. You need to stop practicing. And me, being the rebellious teenager, said, screw you, I'm going to practice all I want. And I practiced a lot. And he would tell me to not. And I realize now that his goal was to get me to practice. Or his goal was he didn't want me to surpass him, and he actually didn't want me to practice or play music ever. I'm still a little unclear on that, but I'm going to go with he just wanted me to practice all the time and used his bigger brain to get me to do it.
Yeah, his big dad brain. Yeah, that's funny. That is some dad stuff. I didn't know that about you. That music was kind of like your rebellious thing. That was my thing too. Like music, I think it's kind of important that music is like your anti-work when you're a kid. That like when you have other stuff and other responsibilities, that is what you do instead. And I think that's what drives a lot of really good musicians.
Yeah.
That, this becomes a thing that we do when we put down work. And then eventually when it becomes our work, it just doesn't feel like we're ever working.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Wonderful.
Yeah, like it still feels rebellious to me to play music all day.
Yeah.
Even, when I get some money out of it, like I'm like, I still feel very rebellious. Like, F the system.
I always notice like the only time that I feel like I'm, that it becomes really apparent like in my mind that I've been working all day is, I've taught these lessons. I've been like transcribing tunes. Maybe I had to go play a gig, whatever. I've been playing guitar all day. And then just at the end of the day, I'm really tired and I'm like, oh man, I'm like exhausted from like playing guitar. Oh yeah, I did a lot of stuff today. But in the moment, it really doesn't feel like it.
It doesn't feel like work until like, you get that moment of like you're done.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, that's interesting though. I mean, I think my dad I think my dad really supported the anti-work thing. I think my dad just, on the whole is just a stupid hard worker. And, he was gone on a lot of business trips and like he was, throughout my life, he was getting promotions and we were moving around and he was climbing in these companies and so on and so forth. And I think he was stressed about work and we saw him and watched him overwork himself just every day. Just normal dad stuff, dads, for whatever reason, constantly overworking themselves. And I think that influenced me and my brother a lot in the endeavors that we took on. And I think that we became people that like to overwork ourselves too, and it got instilled in us. And then there's another generation of us that are all like, oh, if we're going to do something, then we're going to spend 12 hours today doing it. That's just how it works. Yeah.
You got any other anecdotes, or should we move on to our other dads?
We can go other dads.
Yeah. So I have a million other dads as well. But I'll only talk about 5 of them.
Only 5? Oh man. I need to start working on my list now that you're going. Go ahead.
I said 5, but there are really only 2 things I'm going to talk about. There's a band of 4 people and then 1 guy.
So Queen and George Michael.
Yes. Got it. You understand me.
Yeah, I got it in 1.
We were just going to talk about recordings that sort of, shaped us as musicians and people, and these songs by these people sort of, raised us in a way, shaped us into who we are. The first group of dads I want to talk about is the Red Hot Chili Peppers. To this day, they are my absolute favorite band, and I am not ashamed to admit that.
Yeah, they're killer. You're not going to deny it. Right now, I could be digging in about how they always sing about California or something, but I'm not going to do that.
It's funny because I am pretty sure they're from Michigan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Michigan's a little harder to sing about.
They did sing a song about Michigan on the record that I'm about to talk about.
Yeah, were the lyrics something about holding up their hand and pretending it's a mitten and then showing you where they live on the mitten? Because that's what everyone from Michigan does.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Oh, really? Yeah, man. Meet some people from Michigan. Everyone immediately, you're like, oh, where are you from? And they hold up their hand and they're like, right here on the mitten. Or they'll do one of these. This is the other part of Michigan. And then they're like, over here, above the mitten. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I never knew that. But one of my favorite records of all time is the double album Stadium Arcadium.
Did that come out when we were in high school?
It came out when I was in 8th grade, so when you were in high school. It was a 2006 release. And yeah, 28 tracks, I think. But to me, on that album, there were no duds. I loved every single song on that record. Man, I'm just now realizing I don't have much to say except it's my favorite record and I love it a lot. And I listen to it for hours and hours and hours and hours. I can still probably, sing along to every single song on that record. What are some things that I learned from that record? Oh, this little line.
I remember trying to learn that when that tune came out and it being much harder to play than I actually thought it would be.
Yeah, that song is sort of like my guitar goal, and once I can play it all the way, I'm done. I quit. But a lot of people used the A minor shape. And used open strings, but no open strings are actually used. It starts on the A string 6 6 4. sloppy as hell, but
it's all closed. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very difficult for me as a 14, 15-year-old. But that sort of taught me about like triads a little bit, like, and voice leading. You don't have to play, you can voice things. You can look at where the top note is and sort of build your chords around that to find, nicer voicings, sort of like piano voicings, I guess.
I was just about to say it's more like working on the piano roll.
Yeah, so that I guess that song Snow, Heyo, sort of taught me about voice leading.
Aren't you gonna say something about bass, like what you learned bass wise from Flea?
Oh yeah, that was why I could not think of anything. Those bass lines, they were all ridiculous. Let me see if I can remember any of them and sort of play them on the guitar.
Well, you can grab your bass if you want. It's like 5 feet away from you.
Actually, like, the bass I'm using for my gig tonight is in a case, and my other bass is it's a work in progress right now. I'm restringing it, and I boiled a bunch of strings, and like one of the strings wasn't long enough, so now I actually have to buy a set.
Oh, your expensive bass strings.
But like songs like Hard to Concentrate, that had a really killer melodic bass line. I don't remember it. I'm hearing it. I'm seeing it with my ears closed. My ears are seeing it, but I can't put it on the guitar right now.
I'm seeing it with my ears closed. You like brought it back and you used it and everything in context. Wonderful.
That's called a callback. Other dope bass lines from that record: Hump Day Bump, the verse from Tell Me Baby, Made You Feel Better. It's kind of a punky bass line. Simple, but check that one out for sure. Yeah, like Flea is the reason I wanted to play bass at all. So of course, like that album had a huge influence on my bass playing.
Did you ever get some kind of skeleton suit or anything? Did you ever go full Flea?
Well, there was that one time.
Yeah, let's not talk about that time. I think it's even funnier if we just leave it like that.
It's in the secret podcast.
Yeah, the secret podcast. Dude, my number one musical dad definitely has to be, and it's funny that you bring this up because if we do our recurring sections, this guy's going to come up again, and that was totally not planned. But Jim Croce is my musical dad, and if you don't know Jim Croce, you probably do. He sings Operator, Time in a Bottle, Bad Bad Leroy Brown, Don't Mess Around with Jim. All of those hits are his, and they're all classic hits from like, I'm going to guess that all of those came out in 72 and 73. And he was really only performing like in a professional sense for just a couple of years, and then him and his wonderful lead guitar player, they both died in a plane crash leaving a gig. And he's just this incredible folk singer, songwriter, and guitar player, and he does like really cool like finger picking stuff, really cool blues stuff, and just normal kind of flat picking stuff. And he's got this guitar player named Maury who is just an excellent acoustic lead guitar player who's playing like country lines and telly lines, and then is also an equally good finger picker. So when they're both finger picking, like all the parts line up, and just incredible, really capable like musicians that happen to work together. And when we were kids, you know, that we had a tape that I think was recorded from a CD, and we tried to fit as much of the songs on the CD onto this tape on both sides. And that was our Jim Croce tape, and it was just in the car all the time. And it like led to some like funny circumstances. Like I remember there was a time when I went to school at a Christian academy when I was super young, like in grade school. And I remember getting dropped off at like the little drop-off thing. And like, you know, the sliding door of the van comes open and I'm like hopping out to go to school, little me. And in the car is playing Cigarettes, Whiskey, and Wild Wild Women. And like, you know, like the teacher or the crossing guard or whatever that's right there is like giving my mom the stink eye like hard. Those people definitely didn't like us just on the whole, but that's a different story for another time. But yeah, Jim Croce was always my favorite. And yeah, there's so many things I could talk about musically that he taught me. But, you know, even if you just take like the opening line from Operator, which is a fingerpicking passage, and it sounds like this. It's really cool and kind of more difficult to play than you think. And then the lead guitar part on top of that goes. And all of the like parts overlapping and how they're written and the techniques that are used in both parts are really, really interesting. Like Jim's part isn't a normal finger picking pattern, right? He's using kind of like more of a like that calypso kind of pattern that like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2, and every single time he gets to that third beat, he's doing like a country grab with 2 fingers, so 2 bass notes, and then he's grabbing 2 strings with those 2 fingers. It's really cool. Not a lot of people do that. It's like a different, weird kind of finger picking style. And then, of course, he gets in a bunch of chords, too. They're all, you know, like sixths or thirds that are like super separated on the guitar, which is really interesting. I don't see that a lot either. Maybe I'm listening to the wrong music. And then that lead part is definitely like something that he's copying from like a telly line. I mean, like if he could, those would be bends. if I could actually bend it on the acoustic guitar, right? That's how he would want to play it. And then all of these lines, of course, he's using sixths again, which is super common in that country way, right? So I think it was just super informative on me as a kid on like how these parts go together and what they mean. And it just took me forever to figure out like why I was wanting to do all the things I wanted to do, why I wanted to do like acoustic music, or why I wanted to do like, you know, bluegrass and like country, and why I was interested in acoustic lead guitar, even though acoustic lead guitar isn't really a thing. Well, yeah, it's all in the Jim Croce records that I was listening to literally my entire life. There hasn't been a moment in my life that I didn't listen to them. And, you know, but it took me 20 years to realize that.
That's super cool. I love those sixth lines. I can't do it.
Hungry
for a big old juicy lunch.
There's so many like dopey songs that use the sixth thing that like as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, that's another example. I was just playing this one in a jam, and I realized that I could play the lead guitar part because I realized that it's just a sixth thing. those sixths for every single chord. And, as soon as it came around and that part of the song came up, and, someone else was singing it, I was like, oh, yeah, I do that.
Ha ha ha, I do that.
I know. Vine jokes. Bringing it back.
Got it.
I do that.
I think that person lives in Seattle.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
But, moving on, another one of my musical fathers, and this is sort of more relevant to what I'm supposed to be on this podcast, Mr. Jazz, in all of my ignorant wisdom. There are a couple of killer Sonny Rollins recordings that are still shaping my playing to this day. The first one I want to talk about, before that, Sonny Rollins, tenor saxophone player. He just retired from playing. He's quite old. I mean, he recorded with Miles Davis. He's on some Miles Davis records. He's been making his own records for a long, long time. If you've never heard of Sonny Rollins, please check him out. It's worth it. But the first recording that really shaped who I am was a live performance he did on the show called Night Music, which I was too young to ever see that program. But it was hosted by alto saxophone player Dave Sanborn. And the tune is called Kim. And I did a lot of searching and research on this tune. I think it was originally like a Calypso Island feel sort of tune, but the way they did it on Night Music was kind of like just a funky jam. And here's the melody. That's the A section. It's just 3 bars, and the changes are. And then the B section is. I think the changes are. And I recently went back and tried to transcribe the solo, and he brings it in with reset. So a lot of pentatonic stuff over that one chord. But I just love the way he phrased. I really tried to kind of nail how he did it on the saxophone, on the guitar, and I haven't got it quite right yet.
What key are you in?
I'm in C. I'm using the G on the B string and reaching up to the 13th fret on the B string. So it's a big old reach.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that's huge.
I couldn't really get the articulation he was going for playing that.
I was just noticing that the descending line that happens right after it sounds like a Tony Rice lick that goes. And that's how you start that. Do you do all of that? Anyway.
And he does a whole bunch of crazy stuff in the solo. Lots of real fast 16th note lines, some outside stuff. And I slowed it down and transcribed it. I can't play it, but like it all still like makes perfect sense. Like even at the speed he was playing it, and it was incredible to look at. But he also did some cool things like he quoted this line twice from this song. Yeah, he quotes it twice. So that's Oh Susanna, right?
Yeah. I'd say Stephen Foster tune.
I did not know that. I learn a new thing every day. And it comes to a point in the song where he's blowing. And it sounds to me like he made a squeak accidentally. It was in the middle of a line, and I just sort of hear him trail off from that line a little bit and go back to that squeak and bring it up to a super, super high altissimo G. So he was playing a line. Something came out that wasn't supposed to, sort of abandons that line and goes to the new idea. And I just thought that was incredible.
Yeah.
So Sonny Rollins, Kim, Night Music. Please check that out. That's one of my favorite recordings of all time. And I think I've taken enough time speaking about Sonny Rollins, but the other recording to check out would be another live performance of him playing Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. And he takes a long cadenza on that. He's just a master of melodic ideas, creating new melodies. So
yeah.
Kim, Night Music, and Smoke Gets in Your Eyes live, Sonny Rollins.
Yeah, man, musical dads. Yeah, I think you did a good thing. I think that because I'm the bluegrass guy, I got to talk about Tony Rice, and I think that's the right thing to do. So if Jim Croce is kind of the voice of my younger years, Tony Rice becomes really important to me. Maybe later on, like in my 20s and stuff. I think I probably heard Tony Rice for the first time when I would have been maybe 20 years old. But yeah, I mean, he's really, there's a lot of fingers you can point for who really started bluegrass guitar and who gave it a lot of movement and everything else. But Tony's definitely one of those guys, and I think Tony has one of those most distinctive voices. A lot of the argument goes for someone like Doc Watson. Everyone loves Doc Watson's playing. But Doc Watson was good at a lot of other stuff, and he played like electric guitar, and he did fingerstyle, and he did all those other things. If we're talking about like strict flat pickers, played with full bluegrass bands and like had really distinctive sounds and justified the idea of a lead guitar in bluegrass, I think it's got to be Tony Rice. And man, I mean, there's so many albums to talk about and there's so many recordings to talk about. But I think what everyone gets out of his playing is just this really like dangerous attitude. And the idea being that when you take an instrument that is kind of flawed in some way, you try to play to its strengths. So like, banjo players have to finger pick these things in rolls, just like I was talking about, that 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 pattern. And to get that 3 fingers to fit into a group of 4 of somehow. And that means that they end up playing a lot of arpeggios because that's the only reason they can play that fast. Or if you take like a fiddle player, the way their instrument's set up, they end up playing a lot more diatonic stuff. And sometimes the bluesier stuff can create some awkward reaches for them. Same with mandolin. And then if you take something like guitar, I mean, guitar is really set up really well to get a lot of bluesy things out of the instrument. And that's what Tony did. He created like this acceptable way to play just bluesy as hell in bluegrass and get away with it. And I highly recommend anyone listen to Tony's lead guitar stylings. He also had a way of, bluegrass being this genre that wants to have these constant 16th notes. And when you listen to a bluegrass break, normally it sounds like... Right, it's just forever. Tony didn't do that as much, and he was really willing to do these like... Right, where they would have like just these... It still feels like a constant rolling thing, but he's dropping just enough little variations and like little pauses and stuff like that for it to feel like it has more attitude. Somehow it seems like cooler to play like that. It's like more impressive to play less notes, which I think a lot of people don't think when it comes to bluegrass, and kind of sadly they're wrong. But yeah, I mean, if you want to get into Tony Rice and see what that kind of playing's like, and see how people think like that, and how they play like that, and how they play that fast, and how they, get out that kind of attitude. I mean, check out anything that he did with J.D. Crowe, because then you get to see him when he's like young and coming up, and like still has a great voice, still singing a lot, and it's real straight bluegrass. It's before anything else was added to the mix. And yeah, if you're looking for bluegrass stuff too, check out his solo album, of course, Church Street Blues. Beautiful album to listen to, and the title track, Church Street Blues, is like an effort in just making it impossible to play guitar parts. Yeah, and then, I mean, everything, most of the stuff after that he did, that was all, like jazz fusion and stuff like that, all the dog music and stuff like that. If you're into more of what Lyman does, maybe that's a good place to start, because you can see him playing jazz music. Killer player.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to get into him for sure.
Yeah, it's just, a lot of times genres are already so, so full of voices that it's hard to have a new voice. And, so we look back at these like originators that had, like when we talk about like rock and roll guitar, we look back at like Chuck Berry and like Eddie Cochran and like, these people who were like first on like the rockabilly scene. And we're like, hey, don't they have interesting, playing styles? And not to say anything bad about their playing styles, but the landscape was barren. So they had a really cool opportunity. They got to be like the pioneers. And Tony Rice is that guy for bluegrass. He got to be the first one. And luckily, he also had a super distinctive voice.
Like speaking voice, singing voice, or like guitar voice?
Guitar voice. Also, I guess speaking voice too. I mean, his singing voice is really interesting. It's very, very often it's copied.
Interesting. Yeah. Sounds like we were in good hands musically while we were coming up.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you can call the Red Hot Chili Peppers good hands, but I sure do.
Yeah.
And fight me.
Yeah. Write a letter to Lyman about how you don't like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Put it in a sock. Mail it to him at...
Or call or text. The number is 724-257-1046. Tell me what you really feel about the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, well done, man. Look at you. You're like a real radio announcer.
I'm trying hard.
Anyway, you want to hit these recurring segments? Yeah?
Yeah.
Let's try to blast through them. We don't have a lot of time.
Yeah. What are we working on?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think you should go first since I just went. Let's keep it back and forth.
I am working on those suspended 7 arpeggios again. I'm really digging that one. That's starting on the G string, 5, 6 on the B, 8 on the B, 10 on the E, which equates to what chord does it equate to?
Math. Do the math.
Math is hard. this voicing, but I'm also trying to work in that open fourth voicing. Trying to work that in. And that's a little hard to kind of find patterns in because it's pretty much just straight fourths, and you can do those sort of patterns, but using that specific voicing, got 4 ascending fourths in a row. And it's sort of, I don't know. It's hard for me to make choices with that one from where to go. And the other one, I'm trying to work with this chord as well. And that voicing is starting on the A string, 5, 7, 5, 8. The way I'm fingering the arp is 5 on the A string, 7 on the D string, 10 on the D string, and 8 on the B string. And so I'm trying to incorporate those two voicings rather than just the or. But of course, those patterns sound super nice. You may recognize this from Jazz and Grass this week. And so when I posted that, it kind of got me inspired to go look at those shapes again, because I'm sure there's really cool lines that you can sort of use. And I'm trying to use like George Garzon's chromatic approach with, instead of triads, those sorts of voicings. So playing lines like just create an out sound, but that's just playing the actual voicings of the chords and not like, specialized fingerings that make a little bit more sense. So that's what I gotta work on with that thing. I love this sound and I want to develop it a little bit more.
That's awesome.
So that's what I got.
Well, dude, I can't say that I discovered a new chord. But no, this is funny that we ended up talking about our musical dads, because what I was gonna say that I've been working on and what I've been doing for the last week now is I wanted to try to take an entire Jim Croce album and try to write out all the guitar parts. And so the album I picked was his first big one called You Don't Mess Around with Jim, and it's got 12 tracks in it. And I've started 11 out of 12 tracks. There's only one that I haven't started yet. And I've completed 3 of them already. And it's really hard. I mean, it's hard to take a recording from the 70s and try to like really clearly hear both guitar parts when they're both on an acoustic guitar and try to write them out as well as possible. But it's I don't know, it's the most fun I've had in a long time. It's super cool to try to like see all the way inside these recordings, especially because a lot of these recordings I really didn't want to learn how to play the music because I didn't want it to be like ruined for me. And so I had kind of a weird superstitious thing where I was like, I'm not going to learn how to play a lot of these songs because I just want to be able to continue to listen to them and not like know how it's made, kind of. Which is dumb, I know. I don't know why I thought that, but I, now actually going back and learning how to play them is really cool. I think it would be cool to work through a whole discography like that, trying to write down all parts. But That's some real nerd stuff. We'll see how far I actually get.
That would be a super cool project. Like just really deep diving into one person's catalog and what they've done. I can't see how, like, if you get everything right as far as your transcriptions, I don't see how you could come out of that not being an expert on the source material.
Yeah, it's neat too because a lot of it, like I said, a lot of it has to do with things that I'm not really an expert on. So like finger picking stuff, I'm definitely not an expert at that. And luckily Jim's got kind of a unique style anyway, so figuring it out, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel like I'm butchering something that has a really long tradition. I'm just doing my best. And then when he changes parts, like how does he normally change parts? And then, when that lead guitar part comes out, like what are things that they favor? It is a really interesting exercise. So I'll show you, just for the sake of sharing. This is both guitar parts for a song called "Walking Back to Georgia," and Jim's part sounds like this. Which is not something that I, could even, really be able to play before I figured out how he played it. Right, I'd never play anything like that. And that lead guitar part comes in. And, has a sweet lick like that. It's very much like Operator, that the lead part comes in and it sounds like... Right, it's got that same attitude. It's almost in the exact same part of the neck. And when I started figuring out the tune, and then I heard that lead line come in, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is something they've done before. This is something they've rehearsed as a group, and I even know where it's gonna be." And that's really cool to start getting that into an artist, that you're getting some of that like precognition about what they're gonna do and how they're gonna play it.
Recognition, to recall something cognitively, also called recognition.
Oh, don't do that to me.
I'm just busting your balls a little bit. I say the word recognition all the time because you hear the word recognition and it has those connotations attached to it, like, oh, I recognize that. But like if you say it like recognition, like it sort of, inspires a little bit more thought about what you're saying.
What's the Lyman's got a couple of these. Lyman, you're a stickler for speech. You called me out one time, like years ago. You called me out because I said whole nother, and you were like, "Nother's not a word."
A whole nother.
And we're probably like drinking and stuff, and Lyman's like, let's put a pause on this conversation. Nother isn't a word, homeboy.
A whole other or a whole another. To bring it back around, like all the way back around. Thank you, Father, for that.
Yeah.
For my grammar Nazi stuff. Is it acceptable to say grammar Nazi because there are actual Nazis in the world again?
Are you saying from the perspective of not offending the Nazis, like the real Nazis?
Just... Whoa. It's like PewDiePie would make those Nazi jokes all the time.
Oh yeah, he got in trouble.
Because the reason he was making those jokes, or the reason he gave, is because there aren't any real Nazis anymore. So it's funny, but now there are real Nazis again. So
the Nazis are back.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe we should keep the Nazi talk to a minimum. I don't know. That's just me, and I don't want to get PewDiePied. I don't want to end up like PewDiePie.
Yeah. Yeah. I will become like a PewDiePie.
All right, man. Let's call it.
Yeah, I think we've drained our reserves. I brought it back around, and now we're beating it. We're beating the dead horse.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. It's great to have you here. I'm so glad that people want to listen to us ramble at all. I would like to say once again, please go check us out on Instagram. If you're a guitar player or really any kind of player, you should go look at those licks. And we try to post new exciting things every single day. You should definitely learn them, and you can always check out that like huge backlog of licks that's there now. I mean, you can just scroll through randomly and click on one, and it's interesting.
Should we release PDFs of like past weeks?
I've thought about that, but I don't know. Maybe if people ask for it, we'll do it.
Yeah. No need to create extra work for ourselves if we don't need to do it.
Anyway, if people want to call in, Lyman, where do they call?
You can reach us at 724-257-1046. And you can not only call, but you can send text messages to that number, and we'll receive them and read them off if you so desire. Again, that number is 724-257-1046.
Well, awesome. I feel like we're right here at the end. It's been lovely having you with us. Thanks for hanging out for another Jazz and Grass podcast.
Yeah, super appreciate it. You can find me at lymanlipke.com.
That's period. That's it. Oh man, now I got to do my whole thing, you know? All my stuff is Lessons with Marcel. Lessons with Marcel on YouTube is the big thing. You can find me on the big three, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all Lessons with Marcel. And of course, you can find me on Instagram, but once again, more importantly, check out that Jazz and Grass Instagram account. My website is Lessons with Marcel. Lots of free stuff. You can sign up for Skype lessons there as well. That's it for me.
Yep. I think we've done it. That's a podcast. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day. We'll see y'all next time.